Bohemian Ghosts, a memoir by Dewey Paul Moffitt. 2023 revised edition. Copyright 2014 and 2023 Dewey Paul Moffitt. All rights reserved.
Hey there. Today I'm going to read Chapter 5 of my memoir, Bohemian Ghosts, where I encounter the legendary rock and roll promoter Bill Graham. I also recount my experience at the 1990 Grateful Dead shows in Arizona and Colorado, where I made new friends and encountered a mysterious man named Henry Sullivan, who would play a very pivotal role in my life. Chapter 5. As honest as a Colorado man can be. And so it was in that hallowed dirt parking lot at Firebird Lake, Arizona, that fate saw fit to bring me face to face with none other than the great and mighty Bill Graham. A man of legendary proportions, a godfather of rock and roll and a titan of the counterculture movement that I myself had so embraced. Here was the man who had transformed the Fillmore Auditorium into a psychedelic mecca for the masses, who had managed the likes of Janis Joplin and Carlos Santana in the 1960s, and who at that very moment was promoting all of the West Coast Grateful Dead shows, the very soul-stirring music that had set my world ablaze. It was a meeting that would forever alter the course of my life, and one that I would never forget. Graham looked me right in the eye when we spoke. We talked about the parking lot scene, the troubles that plagued it, and what the future might hold for the counterculture that we held so dear. And while I'm sure that he was curious about the flyers I'd been passing out at his concert, he didn't seem to mind as long as they didn't become litter. In a bold move, I asked to officially interview him for a future issue of Inspiration, and to my surprise, he was more than open to the idea. At that moment, I could feel the vibration of something greater brewing just below the surface, and I left the encounter with a sense of positivity and hope that the future held great things in store for us all. The shows were precisely what I needed to rejuvenate my ailing spirit back to life. From the moment that opening sermon, Cold Rain and Snow, echoed across the landscape to the closing hymn of Broke Down Palace on the following night, I was gently rocked and soothed by the sweet melodies that permeated the very air around me. But it was that second night at Compton Terrace that held particularly sweet magic. The boys opened with an explosive Hell in a Bucket into Bertha, followed by the raucous sounds of Maggie's Farm, Black-Throated Wind, Samson and Delilah, and Going Down the Road Feeling Bad into Good Lovin'. Each one a spectacular bone-shaking highlight that sent shockwaves through my very being. And as that beautiful Sunday show unfolded before my very eyes, I knew that like all great nomadic experiences, it was somehow everything that I needed to hear at precisely the right time. I was able to pay Walter back for the t-shirt loan and even had leftover funds to survive on. I met some cool new friends at a campsite gathering after the shows. Some random hippie girl proposed marriage to me by the campfire one night. I can't even remember her name, but I remember that naivety and that sweetness. It lifted my confidence. I politely informed her that my heart belonged to another. I ended up catching a ride with her and her friends to the next set of shows in Denver. We saw a UFO in the middle of the night while we drove near the Navajo Indian Reservation. A more identifiable object visited us, nearly killing us all near the Colorado state border. A large white owl flew out of the darkness, filling the windshield with its wingspan for a few fleeting seconds, scaring the hell out of us as we swerved off the deserted highway. When we finally arrived at the Mile High City venue, I reunited with my dear friends from Middle-earth, the Bama Boys. Freeman was in a bad way, huddled over his grilled cheese skillet and propane stove on the snow-covered shakedown street. He didn't know if he had the strength to make it into the show. Lucky for me, he forfeited his special mail-order ticket, and I was further propelled toward an unforeseen destiny. The first time I'd heard of the almighty Henry Sullivan was at a rainbow gathering in South Carolina, where the drum circles roared out tribal rhythms from every direction. This was a remote, enchanted, muggy southern wilderness, where a full moon was being honored by a nomadic band of psychedelic gypsies. I remember vividly the dark, dread-headed warlock named Diamond Fire, who spoke to me across the ceremonial flames of worship, as if he had just peered into my soul. He prophesied that someday I would find myself in a troubling situation at a Grateful Dead concert, and that I needed to seek out a man by the name of Henry Sullivan. I remember feeling the gravity of his words, as if my future depended on it. Even for me, that was a pretty esoteric pronouncement, yet I responded, "Sullivan? Really? How precise? I mean, you're sure it's not Henry Jones or Henry Smith, or maybe even John Henry?" "Nope, Henry Sullivan." Okay, putting that one into the vault. I'm going to remember that diamond fire. Destiny in the form of a man named Henry Sullivan awaited me. And so it was on this cold, snowy Rocky Mountain night that the prophecy came to fruition. Denver's McNichols Arena howled like a spaceship that had crashed into a dark and snowy mountain valley, lost and crying out to be discovered. Trouble at the seats via a yellow-jacketed security goon who came to escort several of us backstage over supposedly duplicate tickets. He lured us with the lucrative promise of new and better seating assignments. He collected all the stubs, and I held my breath as he took Freeman's treasured ticket from my hand. We were escorted backstage where a man in a black leather biker coat with an official Grateful Dead tour laminate, tattered and dangling from around his neck, took control of the situation. He reminded me of a cross between Dennis Hopper and guitarist Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath. The lights in the arena had just gone dark as the band took the stage. There was a loud roar from the crowd. Distantly, I could hear the opening chords touch of gray as the man pulled out a highly technical thermal emission tool, a big lighter, and he held the flame underneath the top stub. A dark thermal reaction revealed a browning or burning of the ticket. A gut-wrenching moment passed before he declared the ticket good, and then, as if on cue, some jerk in our group claimed the ticket as his own and took off back into the arena. I felt a sinking sensation in my stomach as I realized what was happening. That rat bastard just ran off with my ticket. And to add insult to injury, the rest of the stubs were soon deemed fake. I'd been duped. Mr. Leathercoat motioned for his hive of yellow goons to herd us toward the back door as he turned in the opposite direction and confidently walked away. Frustration and anger overwhelmed me, and I suddenly flashed on Diamond Fire's prophecy. I pushed my way back through the yellow jackets and stood my ground. "I demand to speak to Henry Sullivan." The yellow jackets grabbed me as Leathercoat stopped and turned around. "Let him through," he said. I walked slowly toward him with a gulp. "I'm Henry Sullivan," he said. The yellow jackets closed in, gripping me by the arms. I explained about the asshole stealing my stub, about being told that we would be reassigned seats, Bama Boy Freeman, the mail order system, and the fact that the whole thing was going wrong. It was all wrong, man. I was on the brink of tears. The yellow jackets tightened their grip on me and demanded that I follow them immediately. But Henry intervened, telling them to give us a moment. He pulled me to the side and questioned how I knew his name. I explained that someone in the family had instructed me to seek him out if I ever needed help. He paused, scratching his chin, and studied me closely. Then, in a softer tone, he spoke with sincerity. "Listen, you've caused quite a scene here, and though I believe you've been wrong, I can't fix it right now. But one day, I will make things right for you. I promise." He urged me to go back into the parking lot and find another ticket, assuring me that I'd be able to get back in. Then he instructed me to seek him out at the next run of shows, and he would take care of me. What choice did I have? I thought to myself as Henry apologized and walked away. The yellow jackets then grabbed me and roughly pulled me towards the exit. I protested loudly, shouting a few choice words. Henry turned back around and instructed them to ease up, and they did. The sound of the choir's opening number faded into the background as I calmly walked out the back door of McNichols Arena, reminding myself that despite the setback, I would indeed get by, and I would undoubtedly survive. In the parking lot, my adrenaline was pumping, but I was determined to get back into the show. I went straight to a known scalper. When I tried the Bic lighter test on his tickets, none of them passed. Asshole, I thought. I told him that he had fake tickets. He argued with me. He asked if I was going to buy one or not. I asked for a discount, but he wouldn't go below $20. So I caved in and rolled the dice on a known counterfeit. In a sweet, ironic twist, I got back into the arena on that counterfeit, but this time I didn't make the mistake of going to my assigned seat. That night I was treated to an awesome Dark Star into Terrapin that set off an awe-inspiring 3-night run. I also managed to get into the next 2 nights to witness the grand finale of a Dark Star reprise out of a fantastically stellar Space Jam. I felt transformed from a 3-night cosmic carnival ride that had just dumped me off at the snow-covered altar of freedom and bliss. Ah, sweet religion. Soul rejuvenated, direction unknown. And this concludes Chapter 5 of Bohemian Ghosts, a memoir by Dewey Paul Moffitt. Thank you for listening.
Copyright 2014 and 2023 Dewey Paul Moffitt, all rights reserved. You can show your support for this author on Venmo at Dewey-Paul-Band. Thank you for listening.